Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full IT Welcome to Derry episode 7 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and WTF moments, so we'll break it all down. There was so much going on during this episode. We had Black Spot in present day, which was WTF already, but then we had all those flashbacks to 1908 with Bill Skarsgard as Bob Gray in the young version of Periwinkle. Pennywise really going for it in this episode all across the timeline. We gotta press F to pay respects to Rich in present day, all those other people that went down during the Black Spot event, and back in the past, Bob Gray himself. Making a classic Game of Thrones comp, the Black Spot event really was a Red Wedding-like event where just a bunch of bodies get dropped, but the Muschiettis actually said that they tried to make that comp when they were making episode 1, like when they first started the series in the theater, when Pennywise went after all those kids, the initial Losers Club, to misdirect you and make you think that nobody was safe this season. So they did their version of the Red Wedding, then said, hold our beers, we think we can be even more gruesome than that. But the episode was titled The Black Spot, which is a direct reference to Hallorann's Black Spot that the military gave him, where they could all hang out, that then the Legion of White Decency came and burned down with all them inside of it. It's a major canonical event in Derry in Stephen King's original It novel and during the It movies. Now, they changed some things during the It movies, but you learn about it when they're in the library during different times, learning about the history of Derry. What the show has done with the whole Hank Grogan side plot and the Legion of White Decency has basically expanded on the lore that Stephen King wrote during the original It novel. A lot of the series is basically expanding the lore in a number of different ways. The episode starts back in the 1908 cycle at the Carnival with Bob Gray performing as Pennywise the Dancing Clown, the original version of Pennywise before the It entity started taking his form. The Muschietti said that this was meant to show the reason why the It entity started taking his form in the first place, and it's all because the children seemingly loved Pennywise the Dancing Clown, and it wants to eat the children, so it just makes it easier for it to accomplish its goal. This is Bill Skarsgard, who also played Bob Gray during the It movies, but that time it was Pennywise messing with Beverly, so it was Mindspace Bob Gray. The same was with the older version of Mrs. Kersh, who we also see a lot of payoffs during this episode too. When you look at his performance, his stage show, notice how a lot of his mannerisms, his tricks, his dramatic flair, Pennywise later steals and passes off as his own. One of the big differences, though, is that Bob Gray does not have the buck teeth. And obviously Pennywise's forehead is different too, because Bob Gray wears the Pennywise cap in the makeup, which they make a big point of taking off and showing him without the actual wig on. There are a lot of things that he does during his act that they also reference during the It movies too, like the little dance that he does for Beverly, like the little TikTok dance. Does this mean that Bob Gray invented TikTok dances? But everything is here, like the iconography of the red balloons, the way he tilts his head and moves around, all things that the It entity later stole and started doing when it took his form. Then we get a bunch of reveals about his wife. So the way they explain it is that his wife died before the events of episode 1, and she used the stage name Periwinkle that he then later gave to his daughter Iris. So originally the idea is that their whole family was in on the act, although this episode winds up being the first time that Iris puts the Periwinkle makeup on. So originally it was meant to be a family act, but they don't really explain what happened to cause his wife to die. If she died of natural causes or a disease or something like that. But it wasn't meant to be the It entity. It sounds like she died a long time ago before the events of episode 1. There are a couple pictures of her in the background in her full adult Periwinkle outfit and in the photo album that Iris has. But you can see how this whole death scene act is meant to tee out the entire theme of the episode as well as his own, Bob Gray's own death. Also, if it wasn't clear, the cart where they actually live, and you see him talking to Iris later, the It entity then takes that down to the cistern and just becomes a physical part of its lair. It doesn't manifest it there, it's the actual cart from 1908 that the losers during the It movies wind up seeing. So this literally used to be Iris's house, and it's now down inside the cistern as part of his lair. In the background, you can see the It entity watching him in the form of another kid from a distance, hungry like, oh, this is a good idea. I actually think I should take his form. It'd be way easier for me to get all those kids. A good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. Then we get the full scene of Periwinkle putting her clown suit on and showing her his act for the first time, all setting up her events later in the episode too, where she eventually realizes what's really going on. She finally comes to her senses. You also notice here he calls her Pumpkin, which is what the It entity later called her in the 1930s when it was trying to gaslight her. Let me in and everything will be fine. Basically, let me into your mind so that he could control her for the rest of time. She takes her bow and blows on the horn to set up the later parts of the episode where she does it as an adult. And when he says the big tent will come calling again and this act will be something new, somebody has never seen before, it's also meant to be a reference to him returning in the form of Pennywise the Dancing Clown as the It entity. Nobody is going to see that coming, obviously very ominous. Later that night, we then see the It entity kill him and takes its form by getting him to come into the woods with it. I think because it was trying to trick him so that he would come into the woods where it's more powerful. Because remember, the way the Native American shard kept him trapped to the woods for the most part. My assumption here is the reason why he was able to be inside that barn so close to the circus is because it was so near to the woods. When he starts talking to the It entity, there's a couple references in their conversation. When It says it can't find its parents, technically its parents are Gan, the god of the multiverse of all Stephen King stories, bound through the Dark Tower series. Gan is the white light, basically the god creator of everything. I do not think that we're ever going to see him in any kind of adaptation. Definitely not before we see Maturin the Cosmic Turtle, who's a godlike entity in Cosmic Guardian, but he's not like the one true god of the Stephen King multiverse. There are more turtle references later in the episode too, but obviously we haven't seen the actual Cosmic Turtle yet, if we are ever going to see him at any point during this series. When Bob Gray hears the woman shrieking in the distance, is probably the It entity just manifesting in multiple places at once, making him think that there's a woman screaming off in the distance so that he will come into the woods with it where it can consume him. Later, Iris is only able to find his bloody handkerchief, which is what she meant in present day when she said her father was taken from her unfairly. As she said after this, she stayed in Derry as the circus left, growing up, eventually working at Juniper Hill, and eventually seeing the It entity in the form of her father, Pennywise, in the 1930s cycle, then starting her relationship as its acolyte, feeding it children with the hopes that it would allow her to see her father again, thinking that the It entity was actually her father, until the events of this episode in present day during the Black Spot event, when she realizes, oh, you're not my father. So this is also why in present day she informed on Hank Grogan telling the Legion of White Decency that he was at the Black Spot, hoping to set up the augury level event that would bring Pennywise out of hiding and that would give her a chance to actually see her father again, so she thought. They continue with this week's intro, mixing in that really hair-raising music in the background. You can kind of feel it rising in the background, getting louder and louder during each episode. It's very, very audible now. Probably meant to crescendo at its loudest during the finale. As we pick up in present day at the Black Spot with the Legion of White Decency coming in for Hank Grogan, setting everything off. When the police chief says, give us what we want and we go away, that's a reference to something the villain says in Storm of the Century, another Stephen King story. The Welcome to Derry series has referenced many other Stephen King stories and will continue to as well in the finale. Dick Hallorann tries to ease the tension, Hank Grogan tries to sacrifice himself, but the others won't let him. Things escalate. Then the Legion locks everybody inside and sets it on fire.
This isn't the way.
You also notice that they're all wearing clown and demonic-looking masks, very Pennywise vibes coming off of all of them. Amidst the fire, Hallorann starts seeing dead Civil War soldiers from the past because of his shining ability. He sees an ancient Native American, which he then later uses to find the location of one of the 13 pillars, setting up the second half of the episode. And Pennywise finally shows up, starts eating people because this is like a buffet to him, all you can eat. Hallorann then faces off with Pennywise, who's actually pretty cool, who taunts his shining ability, seeing dead things, I think they see you too, as he manifests a whole bunch of dead people himself who start coming after him. He starts to ask the Native American questions to find the kids, helping save them, setting up him asking about the pillars later in the episode too. So this is him using his shining ability to actually try and help them. Pretty much all the main characters, except for Rich, wind up surviving the Black Spot event too, for plot reasons. I think we all predicted that Rich was going to die. Even if you hadn't watched the trailers, it seemed like they were trying to get you to care about the character, making him super lovable so that they could yank the rug out from under you. He goes out with a big callback to their conversation about knights protecting fair maidens. She's never going to forget you, Rich. She's probably going to become Richie's mother, and she will name him in your honor. They even give them a chance to say I love you to each other before he dies, and he dies of smoke inhalation. He doesn't burn, so I think this also means that Pennywise does not get him. Had Pennywise gotten him, he probably would have had like a giant chunk taken out of him. There's always a lot of rules about how this works with Pennywise's abilities. Like, if you died before Pennywise got you, does that mean that he's able to trap your soul? Probably not. Like, it probably means you're safe from Pennywise. As the Legion of White Decency takes off, they make a very gruesome pun. They are cooked, literally. This is also setting up Stanley Iris's husband being taken out by Pennywise, which is actually one of the good Des during the episode, like one of the few Des that you're actually rooting for. We get a standoff with Kersh in her periwinkle outfit with Stanley, her husband, who's seeing it on her for the first time, like he hasn't seen her in the periwinkle outfit before this, confirming that he was part of the Legion of White Decency, just another reason to be happy that Pennywise gets him. When she tells him off, it felt like she'd been wanting to do that for a while because he also threatens violence against her again, like if you don't go home, it's going to mean violence. Pennywise then shows up and starts eating people outside, goes for Stanley because he doesn't care what group you're part of, he's going to go after anything with a pulse. And we get our next ironic death as he takes him out with a giant cleaver, which is meant to be a reference to Stanley's previous scene in the butcher shop with the cleaver. She calls him Papa like she did before. She confirms that she was the anonymous person who tipped off the Legion of White Decency, setting off this augury level event so that she could see him again, and shows him the bat. I love the way that the It entity does that too. You have to remember that it knows everything that Bob Gray knew when it consumed him. It's like this for everybody that he consumes. Basically giving her everything that she wanted, the fatherly approval that she'd been craving all this time. When he says he's going to go to sleep, it's because of the augury event has happened, the cycle-ending event, and he's going to go into hibernation for another 27 years to the events of the first It movie, basically. She then finally comes to the realization that it is not her father, and it deadlights her, basically showing her its true form, those 3 deadlights. It's a being made of pure light. That's why it can emulate any form that it wants and has crazy psychic powers. There are many, many other abilities that it has. It basically has godlike powers within the city limits of Derry, like it can change time and space as it wants. This whole scene of her being deadlit is also meant to set up the end of the episode too, when Will gets deadlit. Basically, the idea in Stephen King lore is that if you witness or you look upon the deadlights, you're driven insane. Beverly was only saved during the events of the first It movie by the kiss while she was in the process of going insane. When she starts to float in the air, it's also meant to be a reference to "You'll float too," a phrase that he says oftentimes and will probably say in the finale as well, when he deadlights a whole bunch of other people. You also notice the next morning you see them wheeling Kersh away, whose eyes are wide open. It seems like she's just been driven insane, but she's not dead yet. I think because they still have something in store for her in the finale. You have to remember when Beverly sees her in the events of It Chapter 2, it's still just Pennywise using her form. It's not actual Mrs. Kersh. She seems like she's been long dead by that point. So my assumption is that she does actually die. Something will happen during the finale. Hanlon then finds Hallorann, who's still seeing everyone from the fire that just died because of his shiny ability. Like, these are all the people that were inside there with him. He explains that he doesn't feel Pennywise's psychic presence anymore because it's gone into hibernation again. It's as if it went to sleep. That's how they keep referring to, which is basically what it does. It just goes to sleep for 27 years. But he gets the information on where to find the 13 pillars from the Native American, setting up the rest of the episode. Charlotte takes Hank's clothes to trick everyone to think that he died in the fire and trying to get him across the border to Canada with Rose's help. Hanlon then says the exact wrong thing, saying the worst of this is behind them, because obviously we know from the rest of the episode that the worst is yet to come. Pennywise is now free because they cleared the barrier for him. There is no more barrier holding him inside Derry. You also notice in town, on the radio, they call the Black Spot event a simple electrical fire accident, covering up all the racism, what really happened with the Legion of White Decency. They also say Stanley was there to help the wounded and he was a hero, which is a huge fat lie. When we see Lily, she seems like she's descended even further into her Gollum One Ring of Power Lord of the Rings situation with the cat's paws dagger, like my precious, slowly driving her mad. Rose and the rest of the tribe think that the augury is now complete and Pennywise has gone back into hibernation for another 27 years, so they basically disband temporarily for the next 27 years, claiming that Pennywise has consumed a total of 17 kids and 23 adults this cycle, so actually a pretty fair number of people. Then we see the military digging up one of the 13 pillars, setting off the events that bring Pennywise back out of hibernation. You also notice that it is a turtle shell, another reference to Maturin. The tribe's name are the children of Maturin. So just so many references to the cosmic turtle. We will see if we ever decide to show him on the series. When the kids tell Lily what happened and they go to the standpipe to pack up their things and remember Rich, Marge also finds one of his airplanes. This feels kind of like Pennywise doing this, who probably put this here because remember, he lost his in the storm drain, Georgie style. Hanlon learns about the military's changing plan to instead take the pillar back to base and use it as a weapon to control America, a way more insidious master plan that Shaw had this whole time and just never told him. When he goes back to base and then pulls the gun on everyone and even pulls the gun on Shaw, this also feels like them setting up the idea for why he leaves the military and starts running the slaughterhouse up to the events of the first It movie. But basically the idea here is they want to reveal Shaw as the surprise villain of the series. Now, even though Pennywise is meant to be the actual main villain of the series, technically, Shaw is meant to be the surprise secondary villain. Some of you probably predicted this early on, like he's giving villain vibes, there's going to be some secret reveal of some alternate plan that he has. So this had nothing to do with winning the Cold War, it was all about just controlling America, where he basically tries to explain to Hanlon why Pennywise is good and we should use him control through fear. Basically, Shaw is starting to sound just like Pennywise, saying things that Pennywise would say. One of the other key things going on here, too, is that they claim that the military and the DoD, the Department of Defense, the government, don't know what Shaw is planning to do with Pennywise, trying to weaponize him against America in general. So that's why he tells his subordinates not to let Hanlon leave the base or kill him. Like, that's the implication. If he tries to leave, kill him so that nobody else finds out about it, so that they don't trample on the canon of the It movies later in the timeline. This is how the military, the government, does not find out about Pennywise, because Shaw will probably, early prediction, wind up dying in the finale, so his plan, everything about his plan, will die with him.
Officers at DOD will say, when I tell them about this shit,
you'd be shutting the barn door after the horse is already out.
It really does feel like this is the show leaving itself an out so that it doesn't trample on future canon. One of my biggest criticisms against the show is that this whole plot, like the military thinking that it could weaponize Pennywise and then now against the United States, like against its own people, just seems like really weak motivation because they haven't explored it at all, and it'll likely be done by the end of next week's episode and they won't address it again. Why do you want to use Pennywise? Because fear equal good. We will see what happens when he probably, early prediction, comes face to face with Pennywise again, because now he can actually leave the city limits of Derry when he goes after Will at the end of the episode because the barrier is down, meaning that he can also go after Shaw. You have to imagine what that's going to be like too. Haven't seen you since 1908, been a little while. I've been wanting to snack on you for the past 50 years. Then there's a really cool scene showing Pennywise's perspective as he's hibernating in his, like he's inside the cistern, just chilling out in his tub of goo there, all the people that he just killed. Once he senses the barrier's down, boom, wakes back up and immediately goes after Will, probably going after multiple people at the same time too, because he can manifest in multiple places at the same time. So remember, this is meant to be Pennywise pretending to be Ronnie, calling Will to mess with him and getting him to turn around to try and scare him so that he will taste better, because fear makes the meat taste better to him. Ending the episode with the big Mike cliffhanger as he deadlights him, but obviously we know for plot reasons he has to survive because we know Mike has to come along eventually, so somebody has to show up to save him. Some reason, something has to save him from being completely consumed by Pennywise. There's another ironic song that they play over the end credits. It's Trouble's Coming Back to Town, because Pennywise is back on the attack now that the barrier is not holding him anymore. Now, because we are in the endgame, we need to start laying bets to see if we're going to see any cosmic turtles showing up or references in the finale. My assumption is that probably not. Maybe they'll save that to like the very final season. Each episode that's gone by where we've seen more turtle references, yet no actual cosmic turtle, just makes me feel like we'll see it less and less. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below. Overall, it just felt like one of the strongest episodes of the season so far, but that is HBO's typical go-to move. Game of Thrones did it all the time, where like the biggest episode of the season is the penultimate episode, and then usually the actual finale is more the aftermath of the big WTF events. Just because it was a very lore-heavy episode, there were a bunch of big reveals, big Easter eggs and references. If there are any that you spotted that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments, and I'll add them to my future videos. Big reminder, too, is that they have confirmed that they're planning on doing Season 2 and Season 3, moving backwards in the timeline, so Season 2 would cover mostly the 1930s cycle, so presumably we'd see the younger version of Iris running around and helping set up the Augury event, which was the Bradley Gang massacre in the middle of town. Then in Season 3, we'd spend way more time during the 1908 cycle, and we'd actually have more of Bill Skarsgard episode to episode actually being Bob Gray and not so much as Pennywise, because it seems like just based on their pacing is that they would wait towards the end of Season 3 before the It entity then kills Bob Gray and takes his form. I'll try to get my episode 8 finale trailer video out as fast as possible. There's a lot of really big stuff happening this week, so I'm trying to do videos for everything. My full episode 8 finale video will post next Sunday after they release it. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that finale video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other big trailers from this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.